Namaste, I am Binita Jirel. Travel had been a very integral part of my learning since 2016. The first time I traveled was to Bandarban to meet my friends, which was around 3 hours away from Chittagong, where I used to study in Bangladesh. We would, when I would meet my friends, we would go for a mela, drink the rice wine the whole night, and then come back and camp in somewhere in a hillside so that we could witness the early morning sunrise. That was my first experience in outdoor, and that's when my life into adventure began. Similarly, in 2016, I was a finalist for Solo Woman Travel Challenge, through which I got to travel to Upper Mustang for 17 days solo. Similarly, in 2018, right after my graduation, I wanted to do something for myself because it was a long 5 years of studying in the school. So I volunteered in a school in Upper Dolpo through Snoyak Foundation. And then lived in Upper Dolpo for 6 months. So that was overall my travel journey. And from these experiences, what I learned is I was really passionate about the Himalayan culture, people, their languages. I learned that going to a certain place for a short period of time will restrict so much of learning about that place, whereas living in certain place for a pretty good period of time will allow you to learn more about the culture and people of that particular place. So that what happened in Upper Dolpo, and that had been one of the most remarkable experiences of my life. The only trek that I did solo was Upper Mustang for 17 days. Beside that, I have also done group best friend trips with my girlfriends, especially from Bangladesh to Kolkata and Kolkata to Sikkim and Darjeeling. And similarly, also have done went to South Korea for 2 months, where I explore more of a kind of good bar life, and then kind of those kind of restaurant bars and things like that. And those so similar, in total maybe I have done around 10-15 trips approximately.
Hi, I'm Chandra Rai, and I've started cycling when I was in grade 3. At the time, my dad, he bought me a small cycle. But before that, I learned cycling from a huge cycle that was way bigger than me. So you can say my cycling journey had started since I was a child. And when we were young, we used to hear a lot of stories about Pushkar Sah's traveling the world in his cycle. So that story has inspired me to cycle more. And besides that, I was an environment student. So being environment student, cycling was the best way to travel from point A to point B. So yeah, after my graduation, I and some of my friends, we team up because most of the friends, they are into cycling. So we started a cycling campaign known as Kathmandu Cycle City. Now it is also known as Cycle City Network Nepal, which is a registered NGO. Talking about Life on the Road documentary, it's a travel documentary which goes through the natural sceneries of Nepal. And it was shot after earthquake, and I worked there as an assistant cameraman and boom operator because we have a very small team, so we had to work in many departments. As I was selected as one of the British Council Climate Champion of 2010 and 11, my project was related to climate change and cycling. At that time, I had traveled from Mechi to Mahakali, raising the awareness about climate change to the school students. So at that time, I had traveled across more than 28 districts of Nepal, and besides that I have traveled to Rara, I've traveled to Langtang, and I've traveled to Upper Mustang on my mountain bike. So yeah, on my bicycle I've covered nearly 40 districts, and I have never traveled outside Nepal. And yeah, regarding the cycle races, I haven't participated much in the cycle races. I've just participated in few, such as Himalayan Outdoor Festival and Lamata race, because like at that time it was quite hard to sustain your life being a pro mountain biker. Rather than being a pro mountain biker, I had opted to ride my bicycle on my own and visit the new places. So I personally call myself as an amateur mountain biker.
So we first met on a mountain biking trip here in Kathmandu. So at that time I was a very beginner on off-track cycling, whereas he was very good, and then he kept on teaching me the skills on to ride on a off-track. So that's how we met. But later on we bonded with each other so well. I think it's also because of the similar kind of personality and our love for adventures.
So far it's been a year we are together, and first the big adventure we have done together is cycling from Mechi to Mahakali, and during that period we have taken the route of postal highway, and it's also known as Hulaki Rajmarga, and during that time it took us 20 days to cover nearly 28 districts on the Tarai region of Nepal. And after that we were on our big adventure, that's Great Himalayan Trail, and during that time we have completed just the one section, that's Kanchenjunga area. And when we were on our second trek, second region, Makalu base camp, we got stuck in Sangkhwa for 3 months, and during that time we enjoyed a lot with the villagers. It was moreover talking with the people and living with them and knowing about them and visiting the nearby places. So yeah, those 3 months, it was very memorable.
Yeah, and then 3 months had been very rewarding experience for us, though we couldn't complete the other sections due to the pandemic, but we don't regret, because mountains will always be there. The places that we wanted to go will always be there, so we would try the next time. Why we started WeTravel thing is because so since we were traveling as a couple to a lot of different places, the first thing was we wanted to give an information about the places that we traveled. And secondly, there are, in Nepal, there still are a lot of stereotypes about couple, girlfriend, boyfriend traveling together and things like that. So I think our idea was also to kind of make it more liberal, and then more easier for people, for couples to go explore, because you can only understand about the other person when you spend more time, and especially when you travel, you get to know a lot more about the other person. So yeah, that was the inspiration. We decided to come on a platform called WeTravel. There are so many ups and downs when you spend a lot of time with only one person. So during the trek, I feel like there were a lot better good memories rather than bad ones. So one of my favorite memory was cycling in the Chitwan, in the jungle of Chitwan National Park. because we had been cycling a lot on the road with a lot of buses, sometimes on the highway or else on the villages, and then finally when we came to Chitwan National Park, and then it was all nature, free animals nearby who were not scared of us cycling there. So I think that was one of my most rewarding experience. Also seeing a rhino.
For me, like the most memorable moment would be in Sangkhwa Sabha. That's during the lockdown, where like we had stayed in one village, Chichila, for 3 months, and I thought I'm not that emotional person, but you know, like when we had to leave Chichila after 3 months, staying with the villagers and going here, visiting nearby places with them and enjoying every moment, and like teaching these small kids. So you know, like when the time had come, like we had to leave Chichila, I got emotional. My eyes were like filled with tears, which I thought like it was quite different. But I would say that the moment we left Chichila, that was very memorable for me.
And also like it was for us like going as a stranger and coming back as a family, because when we just entered that village, because of the COVID-19, people were so scared, and like we had a lot of hard time finding the hotels, and then the attitude of people towards us were so negative. But with time, things changes. We had really good experiences with them. So I think that was one of our very memorable moment. And similarly, one of our best moment was not to travel anywhere. Just go to Pokhara, sit in front of a Bigness lake, and then just chill, drink a beer, eat momo, and then swim, and then go on a stand-up paddle all over the Bigness lake. You can see only the river and then forest. I think that was one of our very favorite moment as well. I think tourism has been affected really bad by the pandemic, because we were already trekking towards the Makalu region at the time the pandemic hit Nepal, and then government announced the country-wise lockdown. So in the very first day itself, in the major trekking areas, people were so negative about people coming in. All the hotels were closed. And then there were a lot of transportation restrictions. So because of all of these things, I think tourists wouldn't feel so safe to come and visit different places in Nepal. And at the same time, I think there is a huge loss in the hospitality sector. I remember that when we were coming down from the Khunsa in Taplejung after completing the Kanchenjunga base camp, the hotel owners were just going because it was just beginning of the season, and then I imagine what they might have been feeling about not having any guests throughout the whole year. So I'm sure it's a lot of loss for the economy, and then and then a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, you can say like tourism and remittance, they are the backbone of Nepal's government. So I guess once the pandemic it's normal, it goes back to normal, you know, like the daily life. Lots of tourists will obviously come to Nepal.
But I think at the same time it will be a little difficult in the beginning because though like the pandemic would have been over, but then again the mentality of the people might still remain, like they might still not feel safe to go out of their country, and then people might not be so open to accepting them. So in that sense, like it might take at least a year and a two to get things into normal.
So in our opinion, if once the pandemic is over, if the government announces a lots of packages for domestic trekkers or travelers, then the local people, those who are living in the hills or like those who are depending in travel and tourism, they might get sustained.
Yeah, they might get some jobs, or like the hotels might get some of the guests, so it might sustain the economy for a while. So we really hope our government will work on marketing strategies accordingly, because it will take a while for international guests to come to Nepal as it used to come. So yeah. So our recent trip was on the Great Himalayan Trail, where we started from the eastern side, from the Kanchenjunga base camp section. One of the remarkable moments was when we reached to Lonak, and I got a really bad altitude sickness. I still remember we were lying in a small bed in a Lonak, in one of the small hotel in Lonak, and then wrapped in a sleeping bag. We looked at each other and then got very emotional. We were like, at the same time we were crying, because we weren't sure if we will be alive, or like, I think we understood each other so much, and then it was kind of like kind of virtually telling each other that we'll be good, and then we will be together on this. And he helping me throughout the whole process of altitude sickness, helping me carry my loads, and then waiting me every now and then had been like one of my very beautiful experience, because from that I know that like my partner will be there wherever, whenever. So yeah, I think that was very special for me.
All right, yeah. Our recent future goal would be to complete the Great Himalayan Trail
In Nepal?
In Nepal, and yeah, if possible, after that we would try to complete the other trails, those which are in other countries like
India, Bhutan, Pakistan.
Yeah.
So we would also try to do those trails if possible, and understand the diversity of Himalayan culture across the Great Himalayan Trail. So suggestions to new travelers is like, travel with your friends, partner, families, but at the same time travel on your own. Don't be too dependent, and yeah, like keep traveling more and more and learn.
From my side, the suggestion to new traveler is you have to do quite research before visiting to the new places, because like once you go there it will be completely different, but you should get a knowledge about the place you are visiting. So yeah.
Thank you for having us. Keep traveling.